is actually going to be making these decisions? Because I'm confused. The president said it is going not to be him, it's going to be the new GM, but then there's this auto task force, and I read in the Times this week, Stephen's paper, that it's being headed up by a 31-year-old, or at least the top aide for many months was a 31-year-old with no experience in auto. Now there's a money manager in charge.
Well, Brian Dees may be a fine fellow and is very bright, but excuse me, when the United States taxpayers invest $50 billion, they have a right to say something about day-to-day operations. Are the jobs going to be sent out of the country? The auto industry does not occur in a vacuum. And so lifting this discussion up a little bit, just from focusing on auto industry and GM, this is a time when we have to start looking at the implications of monetary policy, credit, currency, trade, energy, environment, corporate governance. We've got to look at workers' rights, at wages, at health care, at pensions, investor protection, infrastructure, industrial policy. Steve Latoretto is a Republican from Ohio, and I have a bill in that says it's time that America has an industrial policy. Even if we're in a post-industrial age, we've moved from industrial capitalism to finance capitalism to crony capitalism, to look at Wall Street objectively. And there are so many areas that we have to look at simultaneously. The auto industry is not operating in a vacuum, and if the economy's down overall, we have to see what can we do to bring back the economy, and we got to be very careful we don't destroy our auto manufacturing and dealer infrastructure and part suppliers, so that when the economy comes back, we can't continue to experience a high level of manufacturing of cars in this country and sales in this country.
What about the part, Congressman, of this plan that has to do with retraining existing workers, green jobs for some of those laid off, and retraining some of those now working for GM to make different kinds of vehicles?
Look, I didn't get elected to Congress to be a pallbearer for the auto industry. These guys who are talking about green jobs are talking about shutting down plants. Now, you can have a greening of America, which we ought to be doing. We should have a Green New Deal. But we can make the cars in this country that are much more fuel efficient. We can do that. But making cars in China, where they don't have the same environmental quality standards, and shipping them over to the United States is hardly carbon neutral, especially when the U.S. taxpayers are paying for it. So when the Obama administration says, look, don't come to us about the decision, this is being made by a group at GM, are you kidding me? I mean, it's our obligation as the people who own this company at this point to make sure that there's input from members of Congress and the auto workers as to how this company is going to be run. And you know what? Right now there's a lack of transparency. There's an unaccountable group of, as Robert Weitzman and Counterpunch described, an unaccountable group of Wall Street expats without expertise in the industry. And they are perpetuating GM as a corporate entity without regard to the social and economic rights of the American people.
For all your criticisms of the UAW, Al, where will the union be in the operation of GM henceforth? Does the union have a seat on the task force? Will the union have a role with any power in the new company, if not the power to strike?
There's no representation on the Automotive Task Force of Labor to begin with. But primarily, the question is, again, as Congressman Kucinich says, is an industrial policy. And I would say that we could combine green energy and transportation and create thousands of jobs. And we're talking about keeping 38,000 jobs for $50 billion. That's 1 billion per job that it's going to cost to keep it, if my math is correct. It seems like there's a better bang for the buck we can have. Now, our contract does nothing to just keep the jobs here. They're going to close all these plants, and GM is planning on importing an additional 1 million vehicles from China, Mexico, wherever. And there should be, I'm surprised there's not more outrage about the fact that our taxpayer dollars, and we're taxpayers, is going to pay for GM to restructure, downsize, and still continue bringing in more cars from outside than they currently do, rather than build them here.